Welcome to this week's episode of the Building Texas Show. We're having a recent guest back, Brad Morrison with the Texas Space Commission. He was on episode 49 when we were the radio show, and now we're on video. We're going to be on YouTube. So thank you for being here today, and I'm excited to talk more about commercialized space in the state of Texas.
Great. It's my pleasure, and it's a great studio environment. So thanks for having me again.
Happy to do it. Since our last conversation, I had an opportunity to go to Houston and spend some time in Clear Lake, Spaceport, Houston.
Yeah.
And I'd never been there. As a kid from Texas, I left in some formative years and then came back. So I missed that experience that I think a lot of middle school, maybe older elementary, when they go to the Johnson Space Center there and they see the Saturn V rocket and they get introduced to space. Two Fish, the astronaut that I sat down with at Intuitive Machines,
Yeah.
he talks about when he was 6, that was his inspiration to really think about space.
Yeah.
So what an opportunity. Thank you for helping me find the industry. And then there's great entrepreneurial leaders that are coming out of Air Force careers, astronaut careers, other engineering careers, but they're coming to Texas to innovate and build. And I think that's what the Space Commission is really teeing up for us to understand.
Yeah, most definitely. So again, thanks for having me again. And, very important, timely topic.
Yeah.
What Steve Altimus, the CEO and co-founder alongside of Tim Crane, is doing at Intuitive Machines is amazing work. Obviously hiring my friend Jack Fisher, Two Fish, his call sign from his Air Force days, is really kind of a lightning rod for moving that company forward in a very positive direction to, really grow the cislunar economy. That's their vision, which is frankly something that Texas can take hold of as a very clear objective for us to lead the way as it relates to the emerging $1 trillion cislunar economy that a lot of folks like McKenzie project. And yes, even though Houston has always been the center of human spaceflight, it is emerging on scene to apply robotics, to venture out to the surface of the moon again and do some pretty amazing things, not just from a national security standpoint, but for commercialization. So, yeah.
Well, and I saw both, right? So companies like Intuitive Machines are sending things to the moon in preparation of projects like Artemis and other manned flight to the moon.
Yeah.
They're going to need the vehicle there already. They're going to need data and insight, and that's what the private sector is showing up and producing now.
Yeah.
But I never would have thought about that. I think you brought up an interesting point. Most people think Houston, well, that's where space has been happening forever.
Yeah.
But it's still a competitive market once you get out of NASA, and we see Colorado doing well in this industry. We see other Western states doing well in that. I don't think Texas is guaranteed. I know for a fact they're not guaranteed to be the place where space is going to win.
Yeah.
But I think we have a heritage in it that we should position ourselves to be the leader in that conversation. But that takes organization. That takes input.
Yeah, and that's a really good lead in. I think the intent behind House Bill 3447 and the Texas Space Commission was to create a portal, if you will, to allow various participants from the federal government level to our Department of Defense to start to inquire what Texas can bring by way of investment, by way of public policy formation, by way of maybe even workforce to help move us faster forward. I was also recently out in El Segundo, California, which is one of the centers, the hubs of the aerospace industry in our country. And, frankly, we're going to need all of it.
Yeah.
Texas, yes, we must lead, but so shall California, Colorado, Alabama, Florida, the usuals, even Ohio. They're really getting behind, moving forward more quickly to take hold and seize the opportunity in kind of the future innovation economy. semiconductor, space, power generation sources that we're going to need to drive the data center environments, which will enable AI/ML to take hold in a very positive way. So, yes, Texas must lead. I think the Texas Space Commission is charged to kind of create that single point of interface and clarify the direction. One of the main objectives we have is to build a strategic plan.
Yeah,
we've got a subcommittee formed, led by former Secretary of the Air Force, Dr. Heather Wilson, who's also the president of the University of Texas, El Paso right now, who's forming up a really innovation, forward-looking plan that will allow us as the commission to move out at a measured pace. Keep in mind, too, that the members of this commission were only seated back in March of this year. And so here we are, it's mid-August. We hope to have a preliminary plan out here in the next, probably 60 days, which will be the formation of the plan. It's going to be a living document, always room for improvement. But in a matter of 6 to 9 months, we'll actually have something that we can share very publicly with the citizens of Texas as to how we plan to get after it, with voices represented across the 9-member commission, to really kind of plant our flag and move and seize the opportunity, whether it's commercial space, national security space, or even civil space, to double down on the history of what NASA's done in Houston, but also look forward to Artemis.
Well, and I so appreciate that you're quickly forming that plan, because as I was in Houston, I did hear feedback around, it's great that we're doing it.
Yeah.
Where is it going to form?
Yeah.
And I know y'all are doing that hard work, but I don't think it's going to form around the taxpayer funding the space industry. I do think it's going to open up an opportunity for Texas to market itself, because we talk a lot about Houston and Spaceport Houston specifically.
Sure. Yeah.
But there's activity. You said El Paso and UTEP, Van Horn with Blue Origin.
That's right.
And the names that SpaceX and Boca Chica and all that. But there's economies around that, the space professionals, as it would be, that are all in these rural counties typically supporting space operations or technology commercialization, tourism, all kinds of activity related to this topic.
100%. The outgrowth from just by having a concentrated focus, a new commission, a new agency, to emphasize what is the art of the possible. The outgrowth and the opportunities from that outgrowth are going to be tremendous. For example, since we last spoke, SpaceX announced that they'd be moving their headquarters from Hawthorne, California to Boca Chica, which frankly, whether it's more of a political maneuver or not, Texas is inheriting another significant corporation alongside of the other 55 Fortune 500 companies that already exist in Texas. And so if you start thinking about it, it's much more than just aerospace or the space industry. It's what Texas can do from a business code standpoint to make this a really good place to bed down companies that create jobs, which creates economic opportunity. And so that's kind of how we see it. It's not only that, yes, we do have opportunity with monies to invest in specific space infrastructure, or even instigate certain space research and development. We can set policies, we can set economic incentives through public policy-driven initiatives to really bring billions of economic impact to the state.
So I would simplify that a little bit to just say you're creating an environment for the business to occur. You're saying, hey, here's the easy button to come in. It's not easy, but there's a pathway for success. The company's not having to decide which county, where in Texas. You've organized the county judges and the economic development people to think about it differently, and to say, hey, I'm a I talked to a mayor who has a municipal airport, and it's a long runwayed airport, and they're looking at how do we expand that, and they have an opportunity to engage in this industry because they have that infrastructure element. They're looking for that.
Yeah.
They're looking for, I believe our county judges are looking at how do they market their county. And this is a niche that might be a fit for counties we don't typically think of.
Yeah, if you look at Boca Chica, for example, in Cameron County, what a boon for that county. You're talking, I think it's over 2,000 jobs, the economic impact, multi-billions of dollars being spent right there in Cameron County, which I think is quite a success story.
Yeah.
And as with any growth, infrastructures are strained. And so that too becomes a very important task of the commission, that we work across state agencies, even local and regional authorities, to ensure that that center of economic activity around Boca Chica and Starbase can be reinforced.
Yeah.
You're talking roads, bridges, water, power, even the soft development of healthcare services, supporting the tremendous growth of employees and contract staff, supporting that development becomes top of mind. Mm-hmm. In fact, you might even say that might be more important than the research and development aspect of the commission's body of work. And so we're not ignoring that. And that becomes very important. And again, we're looking at this across the state. I've been fortunate to travel the state to identify, well, where is aerospace happening?
Yeah.
And, it's not just in the major cities of Texas. Aerospace is a dangerous business. It requires us to build stuff, test things with very dangerous chemicals and fuel. And so, that requires space, and it requires sensitivity to how to conduct yourself in a safe manner to ensure that we can get after it. And so, it's very opportunistic for the state to lean in on this. Yeah.
But I would see that as a benefit of the commission that I didn't think of before this, because you really do have to go out and educate TxDOT. You do have to go out and they're saying, well, why? The roads have always been this way in Cameron County. Well, now we're bringing in heavy load, much different requirements. And we saw that. So Two Fish and I at Intuitive Machines, we talked about that because they built a great building to test very volatile fuels.
That's right.
Right there in the city, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said the hardest task that they had, and Burns McDonald really came in and supported it, is educating the city, the city council, the permitting, the policy, like how do we make it safe? How do we make it fall within our existing codes? Or how do we update our codes to meet the economic need of this area?
Yeah.
That's a big conversation when you're educating across state agency, across elected officials, where they have the power to really slow it down. They have the ability to not be confrontational about it, but their learning curve seems to be a pace setter for how quickly innovation can really come in and do it, because you want to respect the process, you want to respect regulations, permitting, et cetera.
Yeah.
Do it the right way, but you could make that much quicker as a state agency with authority to say, here's why this matters.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about the snowball effect of this, right? By the state and our leadership planting a flag, and I think we owe a lot to Dr. Greg Bonin, the House Appropriations Chair, who saw a vision for making sure that the state of Texas could lean into these emerging economies like semiconductor, like space, small form factor, power generation.
Yeah.
You start thinking about it, the infrastructures required for all three require this kind of public-private partnership approach, not just the state coming in to remove barriers, but also helping the regional and local authorities understand the immense opportunity in that we oftentimes have to get out of our own way. And so a commission and a body of commissioners working collectively together just to, plant the flag, build a strategic plan, mobilize some, let's just say, primer projects,
Yeah.
to kind of get this momentum going and create the snowball effect. That is the hope, is that what we do and what we start won't just end with what we do.
Yeah.
It'll just create this kind of momentum such that, it accomplishes the vision that this new agency was created for, right? And so that's pretty exciting. Yeah.
Well, and so when I watched Governor Abbott, he announced the Space Commission, and you were right behind him in that film. But he made it very clear. He challenged our education institutions and really down to our high school programs on how do you build the future workforce, because that is a very different workforce in Cameron County all of a sudden than what it would have been planned 10 years ago.
Yeah, and it's very inspirational, not just for students in the RGV, but also across the state. So now you can see, let's say Dr. Mike Flores at Alamo Community College point to the success of what they're doing at Starbase and the economic opportunity of jobs. And he's got students coming up through the ranks through San Antonio area high schools into the community college system. You look at what they've done at San Jacinto College and the partnerships that they formed there with their EDGE program. You start to knit the state together, and you use these inspirational kind of programs like, literally this big starship that, is you're going to watch launch, and you can take kids down there and see and inspire them. You can go out to Van Horn and see what a Blue Origin launch looks like. So it's not just going to the NASA Johnson Space Center anymore.
Yeah.
You can see the outgrowth of this and how it will inspire the future workforce. And so, it's really rewarding to see how this kind of manifests itself, how we're part of this conversation, and how it's going to impact, frankly, it is all about our youth and giving them their opportunity, because that's what this is. It's looking to the future, and it's for the future workforce, my kids, their kids, and that's exciting. And Texas has to lead.
In our last conversation, we had a studio guest, Tristan Forks, who is an aerospace engineering student at Texas A&M, and he's having the opportunity to go back to Texas A&M in the spring. He's back in the fall, but in the spring, he's going to be launching what's called the Space Professionals Association.
That's great.
In concert with the Space Force Association, which is really, I'd never thought about the professional side of doctors, lawyers, economists. All these people are going to play a role because it is TxDOT, it is multi-division, it is workforce planning. Alamo College is a great example of how they're positioning not only the aerospace engineers, but the trades and the workforce that's really going to make it happen.
Yeah.
So, and that's a call to students across the state. And then Texas A&M seems to have a big investment in it there with T-Space coming in.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see other universities look at those tracks. I know they're all working towards that direction, but students coming in and getting that impact and seeing it not just as NASA, and SpaceX has done a great job with some of their videos. The Falcon Heavy videos really spoke to my 3-year-old at the time.
Yeah.
And it got him excited about rockets. So we have a number of ways to make that happen, but y'all are really shaping up a conversation.
I think so, and I hope so, right? And so, it's multidimensional, multifaceted. It's about infrastructures. It's also about research and development. It is part workforce development, although, again, this is the power of an agency and the mindset we have with our new executive director, Norm Garza, to come in and start to say, hey, how can we partner across the landscape of other state agencies? For example, you look at Joe Esparza, Texas Workforce Commissioner.
Yeah.
What can we do to partner with TWC to create those workforce development programs? We don't have to do that, but we can create a olive branch and say, look, this is an emerging industry. We can connect TWC to these new employers, either here already or those that hope to be here from another state, or even maybe an international company that wants to bed down. We had a really incredible opportunity 2 days ago in Houston. Dr. Bond and myself, we hosted JAXA, which is the Japanese Space Agency. So they're looking at how they can move their research from their universities into more of a commercial market. And what if Texas were to partner with Japan in that regard? And so now we've got access to their innovations, and they view the U.S. as a strategic partner, not just for commercial space, but for national security reasons, as do we. And so it creates this really interesting magnet and a draw to where, hey, why go anywhere else? You can bed down that commercialization activity right here in Houston or the San Antonio region and commercialize that innovation. They benefit economically. We benefit because it creates a new opportunity to grow a new business with jobs, all tied to this kind of new opportunity and partnership. So it's really exciting to see these types of things happen, and it's all because we now have a Texas Space Commission.
So let's take it a step further. And on the Building Texas show, we talk a lot about the entrepreneurial journey. We talk about people making investments in businesses.
Yeah.
And that's a critical part of all business. But in this one, is it approachable for the individual investor? You have to be certain places in life to be able to invest in this, but I think it's more approachable than people might understand.
Yeah, and none of this is possible without real capital investment.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, traditionally, we view the federal government as the lead investor into the space business. But again, now that you see things like Intuitive Machine going to the moon on the backs of a private commercial investment, that creates really interesting opportunities. That's where this whole dual use thing comes about, where there's companies out there that can take advantage of selling their goods and services into not only the federal government, but the commercial markets, or maybe they lead with commercial market product and service, and the Department of Defense can benefit through those economies of scale. And so if you start to think about this, we're seeing a shift, especially with these new innovation economies. The information age, especially, a tremendous private capital investment flow, largely from California into IT and software startups. Very accessible as it relates to whether you're friends and family, to an angel investment, and then all the way up through the various stages towards a public offering for those companies. And that's very similar to what we have to deal with on the aerospace side. The problem is big aerospace, because you're actually building real things. It's not software. It's frankly, it's where hardware intersects with software now.
Yep.
It requires bending metal. It requires long lead time types of things. The investments in these can go into the hundreds of millions of dollars before you start to see returns. Therefore, the industry has to view this truly dual use, meaning a industry participant at any stage, whether they're brand new startup all the way to the established large business that might be publicly traded, Lockheed, Boeing, Northrop, and then the new space participants, the SpaceXs, the Blue Origins, which are still private, but coming on scene really at a multi-billion-dollar kind of valuation. They have to go cover down, and the federal government has to come in with their programs of record, if you will, which allows them to bid on those programs, capture those programs, and have that as part of their capital stack, non-dilutive funding. There has to be those pathways. And then you look at the private capital markets, and this is where I really applaud Texas too, and this is what people don't get, is like, if you look at the Texas Business Code, even this talk of a Texas stock exchange.
Yeah.
What if SpaceX lists on the TSX?
It would be incredible for our state.
What if Twitter or X lists on the Texas Stock Exchange? So they're re-domiciled. They're put on a Texas-based stock exchange, and that allows the citizens of our great state access to those types of companies to be able to, buy shares in these new public companies, basically that are on those types of business capital market platforms. That's super exciting. I think, that means that very high net worth individuals can participate in early rounds, all the way to Texas allowing for these types of participants access through the public markets to invest. And so I think there's going to be opportunity across the board for high net worth accredited investor to non-accredited public market access to these companies, just because of what Texas is doing to kind of lean in and say, we're going to make this available, and we're going to need the capital markets to come along and provide the fuel to take us out to the moon and back. Yeah.
But that's how we compete, and to inspire the Texas investor that this is a future market where you can have some skin in the game, and there are examples of returns that, SpaceX as a company has done really well. Probably had to have some patience getting through some development, but today their economic engine is well defined.
It is, and this industry, again, it takes a lot of patience.
Yeah,
takes a lot of capital, and so you have to view this just like any other portfolio, well-diversified portfolio and risk, right? Where you probably only want a certain portion of your portfolio pegged to these types of investments. And again, you can catch them at various stages: early stage, pre-IPO, all the way out to publicly traded firms and investments that way. But if you look at the macro environment over the next decade, this is an industry that plans to grow tremendously into a potentially hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars. And so it does create, a really interesting investment opportunity. With these early stage companies coming in on scene in the aerospace industry itself, I do think there are some folks that are definitely kind of leaning forward to put investors into those types of deals.
Yeah.
And so obviously, where a lot of those are, Justin. And so, any listener, if they have ideas and thoughts, if they're accredited, there might be really neat opportunities that you can introduce them to. But yeah, it's an exciting time to be in the industry, and capital is what's going to make it happen.
And I don't want our listener to only think of Blue Origin, SpaceX, Intuitive Machines. They're darlings in that industry because they're highly visible. They have leaders that get a lot of attention. Mm-hmm. But there's an enablement economy in here too. The enablers around this industry are really who I would be looking at they're the ones that are looking for ripe opportunities and return.
Absolutely. And so again, investment into construction firms, for example, in Cameron County to help continue to build out the infrastructures required for SpaceX becomes a really interesting, plausible, investment opportunity. And then you kind of look at the more of the exotic research development led initiatives like Sassy Duggleby. She's got Venus Aerospace. They're making a hypersonic rocket to basically move something up, through, and down from space within 2 hours anywhere around the world. Maybe cargo transport. So those opportunities exist. Evan Loomis at Icon, they build robots that make homes. They also were awarded a significant contract from NASA to build robots that will construct things on the lunar surface. Intuitive Machines, they're a public company.
Yep.
You can go buy their stock right now on the NASDAQ. So it's I think it's really exciting that these opportunities exist, and so investors now have an opportunity to participate, within their appetite, within their risk profile at various stages in emerging companies all the way out to established kind of firms that are publicly traded and listed. So, yeah.
Well, and as you roll out the plan, as the commission rolls out the plan for what is it? I see this being a big part of it. It's the education. It is the commitment from the state to go out and tell this story and build excitement in our state, outside of our state, that this is the place to do that business. And we continue to prove that the environment is right. Texas is attracting a lot of economic development. That comes with a pushback from people that don't want the growth, but it's a balance of where are our kids going to work 30 years from now.
Yeah, it's inevitable. Texas is growing. It will continue to grow. There's some projections that say, by 2080, we'll have 90 million people in the state, right? So we can't put our head in the sand and choose to ignore the opportunity. And again, if not Texas, who? And so again, this is very thought-provoking conversation. When you start thinking about the future economy, space is going to be a big part of that. And thus, the Space Commission putting a strategic plan out there where we're trying to figure out how we can shape and influence public policy to help create the right environment for current businesses as well as future business to come here and establish and grow and create the new jobs is very critical and important. I'll say investing in the right primary infrastructure projects where we can create a magnet where it can help the current industry that are bed down here be more successful, attract more investment, de-risk their ventures. That becomes part of the commission's responsibility and job. The possibility of infrastructure investment to attract new industry participant really gets exciting, right? What if Texas were to lean in and do things that no other state can do because we're in the black and we can choose to invest in these things, and it smartly drives new investment, new infrastructure, the right type of growth posture. These are things that the commission has thought about. We're evaluating right now, all these considerations as part of the plan. Also, we have to ask ourselves, what should we not do? And I think that's another consideration. There's only so much you can do. You can't boil the ocean. So we're defining what is the scope of, let's say, the Texas Space Commission. Does it really help the traditional aviation sector or not? So we're evaluating these types of things. There's some natural regional hubs that have already formed up that are more naturally inclined to the economic development aspects of the commission's work and business. I think that creating testing infrastructures to remove those types of barriers for companies to get through, like, for example, hypergolic test. We didn't know this. That's basically testing satellite propulsion systems in a vacuum environment. Can only be done right now at JPL in Southern California or at West Lafayette, Indiana, and Purdue. Well, they have a bottleneck. They need more. There's a long line of people that manufacturers that need to use those facilities to test their pre-production spacecraft before they go to space. And what if Texas were to own some of that infrastructure? What if we gave preference to the testing infrastructure to Texas-based satellite manufacturers? What if companies from around the world chose to bed down in the U.S. in Texas because of that? Those are the types of thoughts and ideas that we're kicking around to see what makes the most sense from a placing some bets around the big board and helping the industry at large succeed. Yeah.
And if I was an economic developer in a rural panhandle town, Bay Area Houston Partnership is they've been doing this well for a while. I've seen a lot of success on how they're attracting internationally. And that's the part that I want to say is we're not just competing with our states. And I think those are actually more complementary of what's the right fit.
Yeah.
But internationally, you mentioned the Japanese government coming over and partnering. That's interesting. I imagine the European governments also look over here, and it's a global business.
It's international. We have to think that way. And so if you look at the new AUKUS Accords, talking to former Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, a few weeks back, the opportunity is significant for Australian companies to find their way into the U.S. markets and not only sell to commercial, but also defense.
Yep.
And so we're removing some of the barriers. There's a great opportunity for us to capture those types of businesses right here in Texas. So making sure, again, we've got the right public policy infrastructures to de-risk it for their investors, to make sure that they can operate with freedom of maneuver to raise capital that's very efficient to obtain, to then produce goods and services that can be protected from an intellectual property rights standpoint. These are all things that become very critical for us to be a magnet for international economic development and businesses to be hosted here. So yeah, it's super exciting to see what's going on. And then, if you add on top of that the dimension of national security space, I know that one of the benefits of having a Texas Space Commission, a single agency portal, if you will, is we're now able to have clear, transparent conversations with the Pentagon and those involved in national security space as to how Texas can be a good home to a number of missions, to include how to command and control and operate satellites, for example, to securitize and protect the cybersecurity risk to that footprint, not just design, build, launch, return, but also, how we can help operate, control, secure. These are all exciting things, and I know, again, our country needs it, and the state of Texas can deliver, and our people.
Well, I so appreciate you giving me the opportunity to learn and see into this, and we had you back quickly because it's timely. There's a lot of opportunity, even as we go into the fall, that this stuff is forming, and we want to bring attention to it and get the everyday Texas citizen to understand that space isn't just going to Mars or the moon. It is how your GPS works. It's how Netflix gets delivered to your TV.
Yeah.
The satellite communication industry is something that really we depend on every day. And the enablement industry around space is going to be exciting because that's how we're going to feel the impact in today's world of, I don't think it reduces costs, but it keeps costs stable as we can build better satellite infrastructure, as they can put solutions in there that allow you to reuse a satellite. Whatever the case is, there's exciting things that happen that I wouldn't have thought about 6 months ago, but you've really helped me understand the size, scope, and scale. When we talk about space, it's more than rockets. Rockets are important.
Yeah.
And it is an industry that's built on hard work. It's an industry that if you want to get into, you're going to have to come in and be innovative and ready to be flexible and ready to execute at the highest level, because the industry is moving that fast that they're not going to accept mediocre. And that's exciting to me as someone that likes that high performance and the speed and scale.
Yeah.
Intuitive Machines and how they speed and scale the testing. That's high performance in my book, whereas more traditional economies, it might take them 12 to 18 months to get the same thing through. That should really light a fire for the youth or professionals that are looking for that extra, that they feel like they want to be in the next tier of something. This is something to look at.
Yeah, it definitely caters to very entrepreneurial, high pace, individuals
No.
that are pursuing excellence. You might never achieve it,
Yeah.
but pursuing it does matter. I think moving quickly, never let the grass grow under your feet too long, right?
Yeah.
Which also means again, the big part of it is getting our public policy mechanisms to mobilize in a way to, it's probably not going to be able to keep pace with the industry, but they have to generally understand where the industry is headed and try to at least cover down on the big building blocks. And that's where I think Texas can really win and create the best environment that we possibly can to help the current businesses in this business as well as new ones that have yet to be even imagined, call Texas home. And it's a great time to be here in Texas in this industry. Again, I commend our state leadership for leaning into this, being a capital markets participant. I know our capital markets have to also see this as an opportunity and continue to see it as an opportunity, right? I think there's, the last I saw, McKenzie, there's $13 trillion in private capital assets under management of $26 trillion in total private capital. So if you think about that, it's a tremendous amount of capital sitting on the sideline right now.
Yeah.
And being able to come up with rational, measured business plans to support the industry and the pace of growth is super critical. And again, that's part of, I think, the development of any robust economy is figuring out how we can unleash the capital markets in a way. And so, where the state can lean in to open up new thoughts and ideas. It could be tax credit incentives. Encouraging the bed down of Texas Stock Exchange is really exciting. And again, getting behind that to support it, creating the right Texas business code to rival that of Delaware, if not better, right?
Yeah.
I think we set up our own business court system now to rival that of Delaware. But again, we don't have the same tax structures as Delaware. Therefore, why not domicile in Texas, right? And so these are all positive developments that will help us and our economies form up around these opportunities.
Well, thank you to you and all of the commissioners for really coming together and creating the environment for success. I think when I look at elected officials and the role and responsibility, and appointed officials are very similar, it is to create that environment, to understand the landscape and make sure those barriers or that risk is resolved to the best of the capabilities of the system. But you've really leaned into it. It's the second time this has come back, and I'm so happy that the Texas Space Commission is back. And I want our listeners to get involved. We're going to continue to find interesting entrepreneurs in the space industry. So I want to come here and say, why is Texas winning? And point back to some of these conversations and point back to the commission's plan when it comes out.
Yeah.
That you've created that environment for success.
Yeah.
So Brad, thank you to you and all the commissioners that are building Texas.
Great. Thanks.